What's going on, everyone? Welcome into the Cleveland Browns Report. We got some news to break down on today's show as the Browns have made a waiver claim. You were hoping that Andrew Berry would go out and get a wide receiver or maybe a defensive tackle. That is not the case. No, actually, it's a quarterback, which catches me by surprise. Now, we'll never know if the Browns maybe wanted to go after someone else and another team claimed him and whatnot, but Field Yates on it first saying the Browns have claimed quarterback Kellen Mond. Now, this is a bit of a confusing period of the NFL. It's a little bit like fantasy football claims, except it's not the same, right? Because the Jags, for example, who were the first team in the waiver wire order, could claim 10 guys if they wanted to. And they would get all 10 guys. They would just have to release 10 players as well or make 10 corresponding moves. Now, it is important to note that Kellen Mond is going to go on the Browns' active 53-man roster. This is not going to the practice squad. That's not how waiver wire works. So, as a result, a corresponding move is going to have to be made. Whether it's someone going on injured reserve or someone just being flat out released, a move from Andrew Berry is going to have to be made to make room on the roster for Kellen Mond. And right now, I'm going to look at Twitter, and there has been no move yet. It's going to happen sometime soon, so maybe by the time you're watching this, it could be Chase Winovich goes on short-term IR. Or maybe Michael Woods, although it seems like he is a candidate to actually return for week 1. Or maybe it's a cut candidate, someone who was the 53rd guy to make this roster. I don't want to give a name because I'll feel bad, but I'm not going to put that bad mojo out there for someone, but just keep an eye on that. Now, here is what the quarterback room looks like. Deshaun Watson, he is suspended. He cannot be around the Browns facility for quite some time, so just kind of put him out of sight for a minute. Jacoby Brissett and Josh Dobbs and Kellen Mond are the 3 quarterbacks on this active roster. A little surprised that the Browns felt the need to bring on another QB. I loved what I saw to Josh Dobbs this preseason. I had full trust and strength and belief that he could be a backup quarterback for 11 games and 12 weeks of football. But ultimately, Andrew Berry goes, Kellen Mond, former 3rd-round pick, just last year, by the way. So if you were beating the drum of cut Anthony Schwartz, and I was playing devil's advocate going, I understand he sucked so far, but the Browns aren't going to move on from a 3rd-round pick from just last year, well, maybe you should go pay Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah a visit in Minnesota, because he had no issue with cutting the previous regime's 3rd-round pick back in 2021. Now, we've got some other news to get to in just a second, including some practice squad updates as the Browns are beginning to fill that room out. But first, speaking of Kellen Mond, he's a bit of a polarizing figure, I think, when it came to at least the draft last year, because a lot of people were super high on him. Talking to you, Chris Sims, he had him as like his 25th best QB in all of football last year as a backup, as a 3rd string for the Vikings. I never got that. But who is your favorite college QB of all time? For me, I think I go Josh Dobbs. As a Tennessee grad myself, he was my QB back in that 2016 team. He broke my heart a bunch, but I'm hoping that he can repair that hole in my heart from that 2016 disappointment. Vandy, I don't want to talk about it. But let me know who your favorite QB of all time is at the collegiate level. Now, here is what the current practice squad looks like for the Browns, as Andrew Berry has brought on or returned 6 guys so far. Mike Harley Jr., awesome to see him come back. I thought he made a good case to make the active roster. For now, he is on the practice squad, along with Daylen Baldwin, a player who was a UDFA out of Michigan that was just kind of hanging out in early August, and the Browns bring him on after that string of injuries, and he proved, hey, I'm worth at least a practice squad spot. Zaire Mitchell-Paden, Roderick Perry on the defensive line, Herb Miller, we're very happy to see him back. He's probably the most proven of the 6 guys so far on the practice squad. Shaun Jolly, he's going to provide some nice depth and security at that nickel corner position. No, he's not on the roster, but if an injury happens, him and Herb Miller are going to be the first 2 guys or one of the first 2 guys up in the secondary. There are some still notable names on the waiver wire street so far. Josh Rosen could return. I don't think that Kellen Mond signing kills the idea of Rosen coming back on the practice squad, although it feels unlikely now. John Kelly, Johnny Stanton, it sounds like the Browns were just kind of ready to move on, shake hands, and go their separate ways, so I don't expect him to return. Javon Wims, Jamarcus Bradley, Aesop Winston, Miller Forrestall, Nakia Griffin-Stewart. I would love to see Griffin-Stewart return. I thought he played some great ball in the preseason. Ben Petrula and David Moore are 10 guys right there. We actually even have 10 more names, I think, that could be available to the Browns in the practice squad waiver wire period. Yeah, here we go. Producer Trace doing some magic for us. Alex Taylor, Brock Hoffman, I'd love to see him come back. I just think with the uncertainty at the center spot, why not bring on a guy who at least has some experience at the position from Virginia Tech? Glenn Logan, Curtis Weaver, Willie Harvey. Dakota Allen, I thought, was one of the better guys that did not make the 53-man roster. Look for him to return on the practice squad. Javante Moffitt, Lavert Hill, and like we said, 6 spots currently filled as I film right now, 16 total spots altogether. And hey, listen, as more Browns news starts trickling out and this practice squad gets filled and some cuts and maybe even some trades are made, we will be keeping you posted here at the channel, which is why you got to go ahead and subscribe today. Speaking of some other Browns news, Blake Hance was claimed by the 49ers as a part of the NFL waiver wire period. I am sure the Browns would have loved to have kept him back and brought him back on the practice squad, but Blake Hance drew interest from a handful of teams, and deservingly so. This was one of those sort of surprise roster cuts. He was definitely not a lock. I thought he was more safe than bubble, but the Browns opt to go a different direction for their backup offensive line. Here's how the depth chart currently stands right now. You have the Michael Dunn, Drew Forbes, sort of 1-2 battling for that 6-man on the interior offensive line, and then Hubbard and Hudson are going to compete for that 6-man right tackle or swing tackle spot. So right now, that's how the offensive line currently shapes out. But if the Browns do end up having to release someone to make room for Kellen Mond, maybe it's one of these 10 offensive linemen, one of the 5 backups, and the Browns go with 9 offensive linemen. All in all, more moves are coming. The Browns are going to have to make a spot for Kellen Mond because, like I said, you can't claim someone off waivers and then put him on your practice squad. So they're going to have to make at least one spot open for Kellen Mond, and I don't think they're going to roll into week 1 with just 2 tight ends, right? Right now it's just Njoku and Bryant. I expect them to make a move at this position. Bring someone on, which in turn will have to have a corresponding move to open up a roster spot. Similar for the wide receiver room. Just 5 receivers on the active roster right now. Andrew Berry's a smart dude, right? He knows that you can't roll into week 1 with just Amari Cooper, DPJ, and then David Bell, who battled a foot injury most of preseason, Anthony Schwartz, who, need we say more, and then Michael Woods, who's coming off a hamstring injury. Don't you think they should add some extra depth and security at this position that's a little shaky as it begins? I think we are all in agreement this room needs a bit of a facelift. All right, before we send you guys on your way, if you hate the Pittsburgh Steelers, let's end today's show with everyone that made it to the end of the video by spamming FPIT in the comments section. I cannot stand the Pittsburgh Steelers, so if you hate them too, fuck the Steelers, spam FPIT in the comments section.